All right. This is August 22nd, and today, HOVR, New Horizon Aircraft, just released their 10K. And this says a lot about the company because this is essentially everything that happened in the last year. They only release this once a year. It is a 108-page document. Now, I did not obviously read through all that, but I did scan through it for a good 2 to 3 hours and go through a lot to make this report for you guys. And there is actually a lot to report. But what is this 10K? What is in these 108 pages? It's essentially an honesty report. They have to disclose everything about the business, any timelines, all the stuff maybe they achieved, some good stuff we're going to talk about also, cash problems, and any risk and stuff like that. Dilution as well, which is a lot that something that we really have to talk about here. That's a major concern. But there's also a lot of good news. Let's just jump into this real quick. They posted this on their LinkedIn, which kind of sums up the 10K, but they're really kind of saying the good stuff, not the bad. So we're going to dive into the bad a bit later, but I just want to start with the nice, lighthearted stuff. So stick around for the good stuff later. If you are a shareholder, you should be, really concerned in looking at this. Actually, let me talk about this real quick. I saw a statement somewhere, some YouTubers say something like investing in a company is like investing in an organism. You should, investing in an organism has, there's actually, you're investing in real life people. There's actually a team, organization, structure. They have an incentive to do stuff. And incentive is very important to understand. If you're investing in this organism, what is their incentive? And there is a lot of dilution incentive going on here. And some things to definitely be concerned about, which we'll talk about. At the same time, it is important to be directionally correct rather than mathematically precise. I really love that statement because the big picture here is that we have a $1 trillion to $9 trillion market opportunity. If HOVR only gets, whatever percent of that opportunity, we are going way up from here. So that is, the big picture. Doesn't matter about the numbers because I will be talking about some numbers that might be concerning here today. But just remember that before, all the bad stuff, just, that's bigger picture. So let's just talk about LinkedIn a bit and what they posted. So number one major thing, of course, that we all know, they've flown their first fan and wing aircraft, the Cavorite X7, and not going to go into that too much. 18 months of liquidity. They have a strong balance sheet, they claim. Everything I see on the balance sheet, on the 10K is actually talking about 12 months. So we're going to talk a little bit about this later. A disciplined, efficient approach to commercialization, delivering significant reduced development costs compared to other eVTOLs. Basically, this is saying that they are operating at, very low cost. They're not spending a lot like Archer and Joby. They're, they're building one aircraft. They're not building multiple aircrafts. Or, they're very lean in their operations, which is a good thing. So yes, definitely. Everything here is kind of a good thing. They're probably not going to talk about the red flags. But I want to bring up the red flags because as a shareholder and as all of you who might be shareholders watching or looking to invest, you invest at your own, do your own due diligence. But I'm kind of just checking out what their 10K is about today. And so, yeah, let's check out some more of this stuff. Adding people to their team. This is actually one of the biggest green flags of everything today. Speaking about being directionally correct, if you actually look at their let's quickly show you. Let me pause this. If you look at their careers page, they are hiring a lot. It is growing. I don't even know how many jobs are on here. These are all very high quality jobs, very high paying jobs. So obviously, the numbers we'll be seeing today, their operating costs are increasing. And so the general picture here is that they are growing, even though they are losing money. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that, might look bad, but the big picture again here is they are growing in the team. And some of this is not even like jobs that they're actually hiring on there, right? Like Andrea Mocellin's not a full-time job. He's just there kind of consulting and doing some, you already know if you watch my channel and watch the interview with Brandon that I've had, he's, adding a lot of value in kind of like as a freelancer. He's not, an employee, I guess you can say. And so are some of these other people here. Justin Chapman, can't click on him, but pretty interesting. He does like Rolls-Royce propulsion, which they have some of the best in the world. So that's great that he's on the team. This guy is kind of just, what is he, an advisor? I'm not too sure actually about this guy. I didn't look too much into him. Sorry, he might be really awesome for the team, but I just want to, there's a lot to go over and I want to jump around. And then this guy, he actually didn't even put yet, I think, Horizon yet on that he's working for them. So I guess he's not working for them. These are just kind of people they're consulting with. They have even more people that they're hiring. But he worked for Lilium. So many people who are ex-Lilium, which is honestly really great because Lilium, even though they failed, they had a very promising and very people really like their aircraft, and hopefully that's what happens here. People really don't know about the Cavaret X7 too much, and the goal is for it to be more known and for them to be able to get more funds, because we're going to talk about that. They have to dilute and get funds, essentially, is the big premise of this 10K that I'm looking at. And that's a problem. If they could just, raise more money from getting a lot more awareness and retail investors, that's great, a win-win, and no need for dilution. But this is a big win here. They got some non-dilutive grants, up to $2 million actually. So we'll go over some of that stuff later too. This was a pivotal year for all our facets of our business, from design and technical testing to personal and funding. Our May 2025 forward transition flight validates the Cavaret X7 design and positions us to lead the industry in speed, range, and payload. Win, win, win. Whereas every other company are working on like one thing, they are literally taking over every industry in the eVTOL space. Like Payload, it's actually crazy. Payload is insane. We're going to talk about that because there are companies that literally have eVTOLs exclusively for payload, and the Cavaret X7 can carry more payload than them, and for a longer range. It's just crazy what's happening here. So let's see. With $17 million in cash, Horizon has the resources to complete our full-scale demonstrator aircraft within the next 18 months. All right. That is something we also have to talk about because that does not reflect the 10K. In fact, you know what? We'll get to that later. All right, let's see. So we talked about LinkedIn. Let's talk about some of the good news before we get into the bad news. Bigger payload that we just talked about. And all right, well, their overview. I was planning to read this, but this will be pretty long. You already know the company. If you don't know the company, you should read this. If you're trying to invest in the company, as I said, you're investing in an organism, you should read at least the overview, not maybe the 108 pages. I know it's a lot, but I'm going to touch upon the other stuff here. But the overview essentially just sums up what I've went over in the other videos. This is a one-of-a-kind aircraft in a growing market, tackling every industry in the eVTOL and winning because, well, not winning, but their design is very promising because it seems like it's the most efficient, the most effective, the most in every every category you want to call it. So I don't even want to dive into exactly that yet. But another category that's really interesting that they say they are probably going to be first at to get certified is in FIKI, which is flying in icing conditions. Flying in, well, they are based in Canada, so they, I'm sure, know how to tackle that and know that it's a problem. So the fact that they're doing that is quite promising. However, I always thought to do that, to land, how are they going to land with wheels? Don't they have to land with an amphibious mode? Let's actually, well, I don't know. I highlighted this real quick. So this is just real quick highlighting that they spoke about getting $2 million in non-dilutive grants already, and that Canada has $350 million in potential investment that they can get. Although I do see that it's for sustainable aviation solutions, so they are that because they are hybrid, but the gas part of it is not. So I'm not sure how much of the 350 could apply to them, but they already got 2 million, and I mean 350 is quite promising. I don't know how much is left of that, but the company is only 50 million. So the fact that they can get this, and this is non-dilutive, I mean, I don't know how much, but again, I'm repeating myself, but that's amazing. That's some good news. Just want to highlight there. we were talking about the FIKI real quick. Okay, let's jump here. This is interesting actually because the Amphibious. I want to just mention actually before going in there. I know we're jumping around a lot. Bye Amphibious. Why did I write that? Because unfortunately, if you look up Amphibious, it's only mentioned two times in the entire 108 pages, and the two times it's mentioned is here in the history that they started to as a amphibious aircraft was their goal to build. However, as they investigated latest advancements and all sorts of technologies kind of came together, they realized the best thing to do is a hybrid eVTOL, and then other time Amphibious was mentioned as same thing here as talking about it in history, not in something that they're planning to do in the future. So that's something I'm just a little bit like, I was actually planning on asking Brandon that, and I never got to that, but that's something I really wanted to discuss, and I don't think they're going to be getting to Amphibious. They did not talk about that, but the fact that they plan to land, or not land, this is more about flying in icing conditions actually, but still, if you're flying in icing conditions, you should probably have the ability to land in them. So I don't know if they're going to bring Amphibious back, but there's no mention of that, so that's why just want to mention that might be not in the books anymore. Now let's talk about some of this stuff right here. I actually really like this. This is really interesting. All right, they mentioned that the Caveret X7 will be able to travel at speeds that may surpass 250 miles an hour and carry 1,005 and carry, not or carry, and carry while going past 250 miles an hour, carrying 1,500 pounds of payload over 500 miles with appropriate fuel reserves. This, if they achieve that, I mean, this company is going to the moon, because I mean, just for transportation, I don't think people appreciate the payload aspect of this business too much. I actually didn't speak to Brandon about this. I don't know what their plans are for it, and I'm very curious if the X5 could also serve as like a smaller payload. Maybe, I don't know, does it do 500 pounds or so? Which is honestly more than a lot of the other companies already. And maybe could be a cheaper aircraft. Instead of just also doing UAV, it could have all sorts of different, use cases. So why did I cross out surpass here? First of all, this is bullish to me that they think they could surpass it. That's already great. But they are not going to need to surpass it because there's actually a rule. I don't know the details, the numbers. I mean, not the numbers. I don't know the company or like the organization that made it up, but you can look it up for yourself. There's some rule that came out recently that these eVTOLs will not be able to fly faster than 250 miles an hour. They'll have to fly at that speed or less, which I don't know how that plays out because companies like XTIA are going to go at like 500 or 1,000 they want to do. So that's pretty bad for XTAA. I'm not sure. I have to look into that because I actually have some shares in that. But definitely more in HOVR. I definitely like HOVR. Let's talk about that. Let's not get into XTAA. So what this means to me, if they could go faster than 250, let's say they only go 250 or less, maybe they can carry more than 1,500,000 in payload. And in fact, they can, because I didn't know about this. This is really interesting. I actually was curious to ask him because 1,500 in payload over 500 miles. What if you're doing less range? What if you're not flying 250? What if you're flying 100? Could you maybe carry more, like 2,000 if you're flying at a slower speed? And we don't know exactly the numbers. He does not saying the numbers, but the numbers are for sure there because they do mention that in CTOL and STOL, which is conventional takeoff and landing, which is basically flying, kind of like on a runway, and short takeoff and landing, which is just, I guess, just like kind of like Joby and Archer, essentially, short flights. They can operate, the aircraft will also be able to carry more payload, so more than the 1,500. How much more? We don't know, but definitely more is like, more, they're already beating almost any other company in payload. The fact that they can carry more is just crazy. Like they can just be almost like replacing a lot of truck drivers and, just a whole lot of in the transportation shipping industry. This is just incredible. And if the biggest question is if this really works, can they make a lot of these aircrafts at scale? Because the industries they can tackle are just incredible. Like so many industries. I mean, literally everything They're in everything except for autonomous eVTOLs, which is pretty much, they could get into that in the future, honestly. So I'm not even concerned about that. And that's a much longer term play. This is much more useful stuff. So real quick about this here, just for some more bullish stuff. I know we haven't gone to the dilution yet, and this is quite a long video already. For those who are not too aware, why the hover wing system is great. Oh, actually, this CTOL stuff is interesting because, like we talked about, Amphibious, the potential for Amphibious isn't probably, I don't know if they're going to roll that out, but if they are able to, I didn't know that they're going to be able to actually be as a CTOL. That's new to me. If they're able to land as a normal airplane, that actually means to me like that they could probably land in all sorts of different scenarios. And that means to me, they mentioned somewhere that if 20% of their wings don't hover, are actually, I mean, 20% of the fans are taken out, the aircraft can still hover perfectly fine. So it can still land in vertical takeoff landing. But let's say 50% of, of the aircraft is not operating the fans, right? What happens then? Maybe it can't land on hover, but it has the ability to land conventionally, maybe, because it just closes the wings and just, glides and lands normally like an emergency landing. That's incredible. Like, what other eVTOL company can do that? So this is bullish in terms of like safety, and I don't know what other ways they need to use it, but they do mention that if you're able to do that, blah, 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 then it should be like, it has some other use cases. It doesn't mention the use cases, but I don't know where, like you can fly, you can land in airports and stuff, but I was also just thinking, can't you just land vertically in airports? I don't know. Maybe it uses less fuel and stuff like that. Anyways, all right, let's dive into the next stuff, because enough about that. Let's talk about the problems here, the dilution problems. All right, let's jump into the number. Oh, real quick, it was right here. The 20% of the fans are disabled. This was in the 50% scale. So maybe in the 100% scale, it can even be more, like 30 or 40% can be disabled. But, what if all of them are disabled? It can maybe still land as a CTOL, which is pretty cool. I just wanted to also show this. This is a nice little graph they made, really low quality, but I actually didn't know this. This is pretty interesting. That when it goes vertically, the fans are up, and then they're showing, and then when it's transitioning, going about 75 miles an hour, that's when they close and then go fly as a normal plane up to 250 and accelerates faster. So it's pretty interesting, actually. I didn't know that. If you just wanted to know the numbers, like it's just very slowly going, and then very fast when the wings close. It's going to be really cool to see how that actually works, like flying a bunch of those around. Oh, all right. So I want you to know this in general. They are saying they're going to incur a lot of losses in 2026, of course, because they're growing at a big rate, as we saw in their careers. And not even just this, I mean, in general, they're probably going to have to start building the full scale, testing it, flying it. Maybe some things will break. I don't know. I can't really anticipate. I'm not Brandon. We can talk to Brandon about that maybe next time. But they are planning to spend a lot in 2026. And how are they going to do that? Well, dilution is a big part of it. So let's jump into the numbers now. And we're going to look through, all right, all of this is just kind of talking about a lot of stuff actually that's quite interesting. And I wish we can talk about it all, but we should actually just dive into, the balance sheet and all of that stuff. All right, okay, so we have here a comparison from 2024 to 2025 up until May 31st. So just want you to let you know that. So maybe a lot of new stuff has happened that I don't know yet, which is actually something, let's just dive into it, that I wanted to talk about. But you know what? We'll talk about that for the end. That's some good news for the end, kind of. All right. Because this is a lot of bad news right here. All right. So end of... this is a pretty bullish right here. It looks like end of the year, their net income was negative 8 million, and now we're at positive 5 million. So it looks like we are, finally turned a profit. But in reality, I mean, what profit is there? We're making no revenue. So we have to actually look at what's going on. Also, some dilution here right away. You can see only 66,000 in $66,000 in shares were given for stock-based comp, and now we're up to 1.5 million. So that's some bad news there. This is really the biggest thing right here. The 21,000. I feel like I skipped. Was there something else here? No. Oh yes. Okay. All right. All right. This is the more important. I knew I skipped something. I mean, this is part of it. It's all part of it. But there is a lot of numbers here to take in. I know probably most of you did not learn financial accounting. Honestly, even that I did, I still had to re-teach myself a lot of this, and there's a lot going on here. But what I want to highlight, some important things, is right here. This is a big number right here that changes a lot. And a lot of this is not real numbers in terms of dollars. These are really just paper and some financial accounting tricks, and not even tricks, just, it's stuff that really happened. But okay, let's talk about what this $21 million means. This looks like $21 million in gains. And this changes a lot of the numbers in the entire statement. Every number you're going to see is all really, a lot of it is changed by this. There's a lot of other numbers too, but this is really the big one, right? I mean, you're not going to find a bigger number than this one here. So this looks like they gained $21 million. And so we are 5 million in profit, because there are all sorts of losses and operating expenses, which fair enough, we are pre-revenue, they are, doing R&D and all sorts of stuff. But this is a good sign that, we're finally going, we went from negative 8 million last year to up 5 million. That's great. But 21 million here. If this wasn't there, we would be negative 13 million, actually going down from the negative 8 million. What this is essentially this company here. They had to, how do I explain this? I just learned this, so maybe I seem a little foolish, but termination of forward purchase agreement. They had a forward purchase agreement, which is essentially, another company was saying they are going to buy $21 million of HOVR at a certain price point. And I guess HOVR did not reach that price point, and so they're not getting that money. So essentially, that's actually bad for us, because HOVR would have gotten that 21 million in funds and to help grow the business. But it's seen as a gain because it's like debt, right? If they got that money, that's like equity they're giving to the company. Also, they would have diluted the hell out of us by doing that, because it wouldn't have been like shares that they're giving them by selling 21 million. They're just making those shares up. Not making them up. We'll get into that also. They have a limited amount of shares that they can only give out, but the more they give out, the more they dilute us. And this is essentially them not getting 21 million in funding, which is kind of a bad sign. That means, well, what other way are they getting funding? They have to keep diluting us if other companies are not getting them funding. Also, this would have diluted us anyway, so it's kind of a trick scenario here. But either way, this is not a real number. This is just saying they're canceling the potential debt that they would have issued those shares to them. So they're not getting 21 million. They're like gaining 21 million because that debt is gone. They no longer agree to give them those 21 million shares at given price, whatever that deal is. Now, the only real numbers and cash that was actually moved around from that transaction is because of that termination. The company, HOVR, had to pay a termination fee of $200,000, which is not a lot, but they lost $200,000 from that. That sucks. And we had to give up $200,000 of shares, so probably another $200,000 or so right there. So really, that whole deal, is negative $400,000 kind of, really in real cash. But in the numbers here, it looks a little deceiving that we are up in profit. So whatever you see online, we're profitable and stuff. This 17 million in cash, 18 months of liquidity. Well, this is accurate actually, but this right here is some bad news. This liquidity, this is from diluting us essentially, because they did not get this. They did not get, they got some non-dilutive funds, but I mean, this would have diluted us. So honestly, I'm still not making sense of this too much, but I know that this right here is like one of the biggest things in their 10K. Okay. Here also shows how much they diluted us. And where is this? I have a little graph here to show you. This is showing you if you would have owned 1% of the company in 2023, you would have had, you would have had 1% of the company. After all the dilution, which we went from 5 million shares to 10 million shares, it would have diluted you by half. So to 50%, to 0.5%, you would have went from 1% to 0.5%. And then right now what happened is your 0.5 would have went to 0.2%, because we just went from 10 million to 25 million with possibility to go to 30 million soon, because there's 5 million, which here are, these are like option warrants and stuff like that. And so with the more and more we dilute, this is just not good for us shareholders. And this is how they're kind of operating and making money. Speaking of, the investing in an organism, they're working great. Their design is great. We believe in how they're operating. We like the vision, the way the people love the team. They're freaking 1,000+ applications they go through. It's awesome. But, they're incentivized as an organism to stay alive. And by staying alive, they have to dilute. There's almost no other way. It's very hard for them, I guess, to get, they're getting non-dilutive funds, but still, I guess there's a lot of operating expenses, right? Let's see, where are the operating expenses here? In general, let's see. Okay. Well, in general, these are operating expenses. We went from negative 3 million to negative 9 million. That's like a 3x growth from last year. And, that's not exactly all operating expenses. I'm a little confused. Wait, I forgot where I had it. But we're definitely spending a lot more. We'll get there. This right here is really important, what I wanted to show you. All this right here is essentially dilution. Except for these two right here, which are actually the smallest numbers of this whole bunch. This 880 already cancels out these two, basically. But this is all dilution. And as you can see, last year there was none. That's a little concerning. So this year, a lot is changing. I don't know. And as we said, 2026, they said there's going to be a lot more that they're going to be spending. They're actually significantly, they said significantly increasing their operating expenses. And so that is not bueno for us, because that means that these numbers are probably going to go up next year, not back closer to this right side of 2024. All right. Even though all that, the numbers look pretty healthy here. I see 7.5 million at cash equivalent at the end of the year. And they are saying 17 million. I actually asked them that. Where is it? Here in the comments. I asked them if they can clarify that. We'll see if we get an answer. But it says 7.5 million, and I don't know if the 17 million is actually reflecting today. If it is today, then there's something brewing that we don't know about yet, because this 7.5 million is based off of May 2025, May 31st, 2025, and we are a couple months already after that. So maybe did we go up $10 million in cash equivalents in those couple months? If so, that's amazing. I don't know how, if there's more stock dilution or some investment we haven't heard about yet. Maybe we'll only find out much later on, but something is brewing. So that is some good news to definitely consider there. And in general, remember directionally where we're going rather than looking at all the numbers. Yes, there is a lot of dilution, and actually looking at something like this chart is quite concerning. It really is. I can't lie to you, but they got to stay alive somehow, and we are not we are not dying yet. They have a lot of runway, 18 months of runway, and they're definitely going to probably be getting more investments from others and even retail investors, because it looks like the retail investment community is really growing. So, and people really love HOVR, and so I am actually not too concerned. Even though all these numbers I've been talking about are really concerning, I'm not too concerned. But one last little thing here to mention, $152,000. What is that about? Now, that is not a big number. That's a small number in the grand scheme of things. However, I just want to bring this up as a little bit of a flag. As a web developer myself, I'm just a little shocked to see. Their website is awesome. I actually like their website. I actually really like their website. I could definitely see room for improvement, and I'm happy to give my suggestions and free consultation if they're open to it. But I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing, and they're doing a good job. But there's definitely room for improvement, and I'm just a little shocked to see that they are paying $152,000 a year for web development services. That is not for building the website at this point, because this is the same cost as last year, and that is not for any traffic on the website or any, higher cost in hosting or something like that, because it's the same cost as last year. If the number was different, then I would be more understanding. But $152,000, now I know it's in Canadian, but that's still a big number. And the reason I just bring that up is because as a web developer myself, I know that is a really big number, I think, for the website that they have. And, they're operating at a pretty lean cost. Everything they're doing is, saving money and, going a little bit, cheaper on things to, make things more efficient and not spend a lot of money like all the big companies and just be, you know what I mean. So I'm not going to dive into that, but I'm just like, this number is not operating lean to me. And, I know this is a small thing, but I'm just a web developer myself, and I wanted to flag that out. And I actually really like their website. If you're watching this, Brandon, if you are open to talking, I am definitely down to help you and help you guys with web development services and bring that number way down and have a better website too. Because, I guess we could talk about it, but I'm pretty good at what I do. And I love your company, so as an investor in your organism, I only have more incentive to make the website as amazing as it can be to reflect the awesome vision of where we're going with all this. So, anyways, yeah, I think that's it to sum it all up. Just wanted to mention that as a last little fun thing, if you guys are open to that. But actually, look at this. They invested less in vehicles and websites, even computer equipment, leasehold improvements. The website was their biggest cost in property and equipment, which is also a bit of a red flag. Somewhere I saw that they're not spending too much on R&D. Where was it? Their R&D or their what was it? Yeah, their equipment is quite low, but that's because they're not. They're only operating one aircraft, and it's just still pretty early on. They don't have a factory yet building these, and there's just a lot of reasons for a lot of these numbers to be certain ways. But the big picture here is that there is dilution. That is something to be concerned about as a shareholder if you are concerned about that. I know I am definitely, but again, bigger picture is we are flying, baby. So hopefully this helps you guys understand the 10K. I know there's a lot to take in. But yeah, until next time, guys, stay thinking, question everything, and peace out.